This is a PCB with 15 7-segment LED digits on it, each one with a decimal point, and the digits are made up from 0402 surface mount LEDs. The idea is to try and make a sort of calculator display, but a fairly small one, so I've had to use fairly small LEDs. They're not the smallest you can get, but they're sort of the smallest you can actually make by hand. Once that's populated, and there's 120 LEDs on there, it looks something like this. And if I turn that on, there we go, so it's counting, but it's actually very difficult to see because you've just got points for each segment, which isn't very segmenty. So to get around that, what you can do is you can put a frame over the front, and this is how a few of the displays that you can buy are actually made, but they tend to only be maybe 8 digits, and this is 15, and it's also quite a lot smaller. Now that still doesn't work too well, but if you put a bit of paper or something over it like that, you can see that you're starting to see segments there rather than the point sources. And the best thing I've found to actually make a diffuser is actually masking tape. So if I get a bit of that, put that on top of the frame. It's a bit fiddly, this. If I stick that on top like that, and the frame has been set up to be exactly the same size as the PCB, so we can gradually fit that on top of the LEDs. When I said it's a bit fiddly, I meant it's a lot fiddly. Something like that. Feed that over. That's sort of working, isn't it? There we go. So you can now see that we've got digits appearing, proper segments. I think some of my anodes are shorting out there. Let me sort that out. Unfortunately my masking tape's not very sticky at the moment. Right, if I had some stickier masking tape that would be a lot better. But you can see now that the digits, I think I have to turn the lights off, digits are very readable. They actually look a lot better in real life than they do through the camera. And I actually tried, I think there's something not quite right with some segments over there, or some anodes. There we go, it's better I think. I did try printing a frame, let's turn that on, a frame out of white plastic, but that just completely leaks light. That's no good at all. So I'm wondering if I could 3D print a diffuser from the white resin and see whether that could fit on top of the black, and maybe that's a better way of just sticking masking tape on, or some sort of film. On the ones that you can buy, they do actually have a film on top, so they do have a diffuser very similar to that, obviously not masking tape. There's only LEDs on here, there's nothing else, so I've got some resistors down here for current limiting, which is currently 1K resistors running straight off GPIOs on the Pico. So it's pretty bright, even with a 1K resistor and 3.3 volts, so you could probably get more brightness out of these if you needed to. There's a little bit of sort of unevenness in each segment, and that's because I've got one LED driving each segment and it's a point source, so you end up with a sort of brighter bit. But if you 3D printed a diffuser to fit on the top, you could then actually shape the diffuser and counteract that effect, so you make it slightly thicker where the LED, sort of above the LED, and thinner around that, and you should end up evening it out a bit. It'll be a bit tricky to sort out, but that looks quite nice there, and as long as I've got some sort of way of mechanically fixing everything together and getting a decent diffuser on top, I think that'll work quite well as a display. It's very readable, and It looks very similar to the ones that you can actually buy, but very much smaller. This is, have I got a ruler? I have got a, somewhere I've got a tape measure. So this is 60mm wide. You can see that's 60mm wide and about 14 high. If I put it there, it's about 14mm high, so it's not very big at all. It's quite small. But yeah, that's worked better than I thought it was going to. Manually putting these on, which is what I did, all the LEDs, was okay. It took a little while, but obviously the way to do it would be to get this assembled by a PCB manufacturer, and that would be a lot quicker but more expensive. And you could then probably move to smaller LEDs and either have multiple LEDs per segment or a much smaller display by going to sort of 0201 or the smallest LEDs you can get. And obviously they'd be able to assemble that automatically rather than doing it manually, which wouldn't be very easy. These are red LEDs as well, there's no filter there. So you could have a different colour display if you wanted to, or a multicolour display. And you could also have alpha numeric segments, the 14 segment digits, but probably not at this size. This is about, not with these LEDs anyway, this is about as small as you can go with 0402s. They are actually, you can see from the PCB, they are right up against each other. You might be able to get a couple more LEDs in the gap in between the, sort of in the hole where the 8s are, but nothing much else. But that's worked quite well. I'm pleased with that. It's probably come out better than I thought it was going to, and it's been a little bit easier to make as well. I wasn't looking forward to putting the 120 LEDs on there, but that was okay. But then I've got an oven, so what I actually did, I didn't hand solder them. I actually tinned all the pads and then put a lot of flux on and used the flux to hold the components and then put that in the oven. And all the LEDs apart from 2 actually soldered fine. And then I went back and fitted the 2 that didn't solder fine and soldered those by hand. But I think it took me about 20 minutes to fit them all. It wasn't too bad, but I wouldn't want to make sort of batches of them. They really need to be made by a PCB manufacturer.